Hello and welcome back, everyone, to another reading of Valdor, Book of the Imperium. Birth of the Imperium. It has been a long day. And as you can tell, I'm very, very excited to be here for part 2. That is chapter 2. Don't mind the ambience. People tend to be busy when I hit the record button. For whatever reason, I think it's one of the principal laws of our universe. Oh, I'm Gelathael. Happy to see you. How are you? Well, let's get right into it. This is going to be a short chapter. I skimmed through it a little bit. And, hey, we're going to wing it. Very well. Read along with me now. Chapter 2. It was a ludicrous place for a city. The air was painfully thin, even with the embedded processors clattering along at full tilt, squirting oxygen into an altitude never designed for human lungs. It had taken years to stabilize the climate here, and continual effort was still required to maintain what had been painfully won. If the processors ever failed, or if the nuclear power plants buried deep in the mountain's roots ever faltered, this place would revert to what it had been for most of its long history, a silent waste at the roof of the world, marked by nothing but hard-packed snow and naked rock. Few observers ever speculated why such a location had been chosen for the site of the new capital. Few ever speculated on any of his actions these days. It had become commonplace to simply accept them. There had to be a reason, or he would not have done it. The recent decades of spectacular success had made people think he was invincible, inerrant, omnipotent. Dangerous thoughts. They ran counter to the very hearts of blood of the whole enterprise. But once they were formulated, they were so irritatingly hard to stamp out. So there were organizations dedicated to eradicating difficult ideas. They operated subtly for the most part, enforcing literature bans, having quiet words with the right or the wrong people. But Terra was still a violent world, still in the birth pangs of its new future, and there were times when sharper tools were needed. Some observers maintained that the planet was all but united now, and that only sporadic actions were necessary to keep a lid on the worst of long-ingrained human nature. Compliance actions, they were called. None of this, sadly, was true. Old powers still cultivated support in the dark soils of rat-infested valleys. Some were deluded, unable to accept the new truth of a dawning age. Others knew just what was happening and fought to prevent its sunrise. Even so, the idea was the most dangerous part. The notion, the belief, that most lingering of the old pathologies, clinging with withered fingertips onto the edge of the long fall into oblivion. I teach the end of a belief, he had said once. So it was written. I am its terminus, its replacement. After me there will only be perception, a sight of the single truth, glimpsed from distance. The custodian Simonus had no belief, at least not in the sense of something superstitious, something grasping at the numinous. If he had once as a child been able to entertain such phantasms, that capability had been scrubbed out of him a long time ago. He did not miss it. Simonus had no regrets. Regrets were for the mass of humanity, the herds he had been appointed to watch over. For one of his order, there were only the stark binaries left: to know, to be ignorant, to overcome, to be defeated, to be loyal, to be traitor. So when he looked out over the palace, as he knew one day it would routinely be called, he did not share in the fantastical idea that the half-finished domes and spires had been somehow fated to be raised here, or that its existence was proof of some ineffable divine will. For it was merely there. The order had been given. Now his purpose was to safeguard it, just as his purpose had always been to safeguard the creations. He entertained a residual interest in the progress of the Techrites. He had watched the Tower of Hegemon rise slowly from extravagantly solid foundations. To the north, across a deep valley slowly filling with rockcrete piers, he had seen the great halls of the Senatorum Imperialis take shape. The size had impressed him, a typically bold statement of vision. For centuries, Terra had been a world of mediocre warlords' roosts, crumbling palaces, ruins that slowly subsided into dust drifts. This was something else. "I do not truly see the need for it, Calendar," the First Chancellor had once confided irritably. As the man responsible for finding the coin necessary for its construction, he could be forgiven for doubting the purpose of it all. Simonis understood, though. He understood that once complete, this fortress would daunt the mortal soul. Once complete, it would project such an air of domination that no enemy would ever contemplate attacking it, unless they had been driven into some kind of bestial madness and no longer feared total annihilation. He had seen the plans for the rest, too. He had seen blueprints for constructions of totally unknown purpose. Some of these would be immensely tall, just like the chamber of the Senatorum. Other galleries went down a long way. Despite the punishing environment, the palace was not the first great fortress to be made here. As ever on Terra, foundations had been laid upon foundations. Who knew where the trail eventually ended? Perhaps even he did not. Simonis did not know how long he had been alive for, and what he had seen across those many years. That was natural. The Emperor, as they all called him, was bounded by limitation. He required servants. He required allies. And he required tools. Some of these tools were trivial and plentiful, like the workers of the Masonic guilds who painstakingly engraved the stone capitals atop their skyscrapers of scaffolding. Some were rare and potent, like Simonis himself. Some were powerful almost beyond conception, creations of such outsized, bafflingly outrageous capability that one was tempted to echo Calendar's skepticism and failed to see the need. The greatest of these creatures was back in the palace now, withdrawn from the wars in the west, where the Emperor and his regent still remained. So the reports went. He had been pulled from the fighting. That would not make his mood a cheerful one. So Simonis walked a little faster than he would normally have done. His boots, exquisite creations unique to him, clinked on the glass marble with a fractionally more intense rhythm. Not that any mortal ears would have detected the difference. By the time he had arrived at his destination, his total expenditure of energy was close to a 1% higher than the baseline estimate for such a short journey. Perhaps he could have done better. Then again, that was always the assessment. "Come." The voice came from the other side of the heavy oak doors. It was as familiar to Simonis as his own, a sonorous voice, preternaturally calm, effortlessly confident, slighter than you'd expect, as translucent in its own way as the unbroken snow palls outside. It was the voice of command. It was the voice of order. It was the voice of infinite violence held back, barely, within a shell of fragile artifice. He went in. "Captain General," Simonis said, bowing. Captain General, a nondescript term for an office of colossal power. In the early days, all their titles had been modest, and it had only been the rapid expansion of the scholar class that had brought about the absurdities of Gothic rank inflation. Then again, this one had seen it all. This one had. He had been there before the beginning, they said. The first of the order. Coval with the sigillite, the final element of the trinity that had brought a world to heel. Emperor, sorcerer, warrior. He was standing, looking out of a wide crystal-flex window at the peaks in the west. His tall frame, far taller than the tallest unaltered human. A cathedral of hard-edged muscle and bone. It made the room's fittings shrink. He wore a pale robe, fine-spun lined with gold. His head was bare, exposing a master-crafted ring of thread implants around his neck. He stood with a dancer's bearing, the unconscious poise that all of the order shared, ready, at the prompt of a thought, to mobilize all that spectacular gene magic and biomacy into a world of destructive action. But for now still, held together, dormant. He turned, exposing his face. It was lean, a soft collection of taut lines. I can imagine it now, Constantine Valdor said, as it will be when complete. I never could before. Simonis nodded. The grand plan was becoming increasingly obvious as the walls and the towers began to climb their way into the frosty airs.
A masterful vision,
he ventured. You think so? Valdor regarded him coolly. Valdor regarded most things coolly. A ludicrous place for a city. I told him that myself.
It will be a symbol.
We are the symbols. So his master's humors were cold, just as predicted. It was unlikely Valdor truly intended criticism of the Emperor. It was unlikely that Valdor or Simonis or any of the Order were truly capable of sustained criticism of him. We are extensions of a single will, Simonis had been told, on awakening from the final trial decades ago. We are adjuncts. We are orbitals. We are the periphery of the immortal, not its heart.
Will he return soon?
Simonis ventured. No. Valdor turned back to the mountains. At least that will give the Techrites time to finish it.
I have the reports if you wish to read them.
Valdor turned back towards him, and there was the specter of half a smile, briefly. Diligent Simonis, he said. Tell me of her. Simonis hesitated. Some matters were delicate, hard to handle even for one of his training.
She is near now, he said, closing on her objective. I completed my researches, and the threat is significant. If you were asking for counsel,
I was not. But give it, since you started.
End her now.
Valdor thought on that for a moment. She is that dangerous?
She knows.
Knowledge is no crime.
In itself, no. Well, what is done with it, that can be.
Oh, goodness. Valdor moved away from the window. No, not yet. He drew in a breath, then winced a little. The air was antiseptic here, still raw from the cyclers, and was no substitute for the real thing. This is a new age, Visterios, an age of law. I will not succumb to a warlord's urges, and nor should you.
It is understood, Captain General.
Gather evidence. Find a weakness, a slip in resolve.
It is understood, Captain General.
Is she here?
Yes.
Then this should be trivial for one of your talents. Simonis looked up. briefly entertaining the idea that he was being mocked. Nothing was trivial. Not in this place.
She has his trust.
Valdor did not smile. I do not think he trusts Simonis. Even we can trust in an idea or an order, but he has nothing. Be mindful, the stronger you become, the weaker everything around you is. He can grasp onto nothing, for his grip will break it. Imagine that. Imagine the solitude of it. He turned away. His mood seemed capricious. Or maybe the wariness was telling, even for one of his near-infinite resources. Simonis said nothing, waiting for it to play out. I would not welcome seeing her ended, he said at length. She is a symbol, too, of a kind. A better kind than we are, maybe.
I will bear that in mind, said Simonis.
But if the moment comes, of course.
Your sanction, Captain General?
You will use your judgment. And that was the end of it. Simonis bowed again and withdrew, retracing his steps back to the heavy doors. By the time he pulled them closed, Valdor was facing back out into the landscape beyond, hands clasped behind his back. He looked as solid as the peaks beyond, or maybe so, as if he would outlast them, and still be standing there when they were no more than rubble just there, in that place, against the crystal screen where the air was thin. But then many things had looked eternal at the start. That was the great lesson of unification. None of it was. Nothing but him. And he was not here yet. And so all could yet be doubted. So Simonis closed the doors. There was work to do. Okay. That was a little excruciating for me after a long day. But, it's only day 2. People are so busy, man. Listen to them go. Anyway, what is it, Saturday? Before I get too distracted. As I was saying, it's only day 2. Imagine how much better I'll be in a week. A full week of doing this every day. And then a month. A month of doing this every day. I think if you just keep up with something, you can't help but get, better at it. Right now, I feel like the difference between reading out loud and then reading in your mind and then being able to keep the consistencies up, like when you're reading in your mind, it's just way different. Man, I almost feel like a mutant trying to keep the pace. Like, it's almost there. I can feel it. I can feel like a nice storyteller's pace with inflections. I can feel when I miss the beat. And I can feel when there should be a little bit of an accent here or stress here. And then, you miss it, but you miss it and all this kind of stuff. I will. It is what it is. Anything else? Come back tomorrow. For part 3, chapter 3, because I'm going to do it again. As painful as it is, I said I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it. Thanks for watching. I'm Gelathael. Leave a comment. Say anything. I'm very lonely. I could use some company, okay? Don't be a freak, though. No need to be weird. Anyway, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.